For 3 generations, it was the golden number, the benchmark of success, the "I made it" moment, $100,000. In 1995, a six-figure salary wasn't just a paycheck, it was a ticket to the upper class. It meant a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs, 2 cars in the driveway, annual vacations to Europe, and a maxed-out retirement fund. It was the finish line of the American dream. But welcome to 2026. Today, that same $100,000 puts you in a studio apartment in a Tier 1 city. It qualifies you for debt, not wealth. It barely covers the basics of a modern existence. The math doesn't lie, but the feeling in your gut tells you something is terribly wrong. If you feel like you are working harder than your parents did, but getting half as far, it is not in your head, it is in the system. You have entered the middle-class trap. To understand why you feel broke despite being in the top earners bracket, we first have to strip away the illusion of the gross salary. When you sign that offer letter for $100K, you feel rich, but the money evaporates before it ever hits your bank account. Let's look at the raw numbers of the modern era. First, the government takes its share. Federal tax, state tax, FICA, Social Security. Depending on where you live, that $100,000 is immediately slashed to roughly $70,000. That is $5,800 a month. In 1995, that was a fortune. In 2026, it is a tight budget. The average rent for a decent apartment in a major metropolitan hub has skyrocketed to over $3,000 a month. That is not for a mansion, that is for a standard roof over your head. Suddenly, more than 50% of your take-home pay is gone just to exist. You are now left with $2,800. Then comes the silent wealth killer, the cost of looking the part. If you have a 6-figure job, you likely have 6-figure expectations. You have student loans, which now average $500 a month. You need a reliable car to get to that job. With insurance and gas, that's another $800. You have to eat, and thanks to grocery inflation, a healthy diet for one person is easily $600. We haven't even touched utilities, internet, phone bills, or health insurance premiums yet. By the time you pay for the bare necessities of a middle-class life, your disposable income is hovering near zero. You are one unexpected medical bill or one car repair away from credit card debt. This isn't living. This is subsisting with a fancy job title. This is the new definition of the working poor, disguised in business casual. But why is this happening now? Why did the math break? The answer lies in a concept economists call shadow inflation. You see, the government calculates inflation based on a basket of goods, TVs, t-shirts, cheap electronics. Those things have stayed cheap. But the things you actually need to survive and build a life, housing, education, and healthcare, have exploded in price. Since 2020, the cumulative inflation on these essential assets has outpaced wage growth by nearly 40%. In 2026, a $100,000 salary has the same purchasing power that $58,000 had just a decade ago. You are being paid in a currency that is melting in your hands. This brings us to the most dangerous part of the trap, the asset gap. In the old economy, you could save your way to wealth. You worked, you put money in a savings account, and eventually you bought a house. But in 2026, the price of entry for assets has moved faster than you can save. This has created a permanent class divide. It is no longer about high income versus low income. It is about asset owners versus income earners. In the past, a house cost 3 times the average yearly salary. Today, in desirable areas, it costs 10 to 12 times the average salary. The down payment alone is more than most people can save in a decade. While you are working hard to save cash, the target keeps moving further away. Institutional investors and corporations have entered the housing market, driving prices up and turning the middle class into a permanent renter class. You are not just competing against other homebuyers, you are competing against Wall Street. And while you are stuck on this treadmill, there is a psychological warfare waging against you every single day. We call this the lifestyle trap. In 2026, the baseline for what is considered a normal life has been artificially inflated by the algorithm. 50 years ago, you only compared yourself to your neighbors. Today, you open your phone and compare your life to the top 1% of the entire planet, 24/7. You see the vacations, the luxury cars, the omakase dinners, and you feel behind. So, what does the high earner do to cope? They finance the lifestyle to match the salary. They lease the Audi. They order the DoorDash. They upgrade the tech. This phenomenon creates a specific demographic called Henrys. High earner, not rich yet. The entire economy is designed to keep you liquidating your cash flow into depreciating liabilities. It keeps the GDP moving, but it keeps you stuck. You have the appearance of wealth, but zero freedom. You are shackled to your job because you cannot survive 3 months without that paycheck. You are technically rich on paper, but practically you are living paycheck to paycheck, just with higher limits on your credit cards. This creates a high-stress environment where you are terrified of losing your job because the gap between your income and your expenses is razor thin. This is not freedom. This is modernized indentured servitude. So, is the American dream dead, or has it just changed forms? If 100K is the new 50K, you cannot play by the old rules and expect to win. The people who are winning in 2026 have realized that a salary is not the goal. It is merely the fuel. To escape the trap, you must shift your primary focus from income to equity. The wealthy do not work for money, they work for assets. In an environment of high inflation and currency devaluation, holding cash is a losing strategy. The only hedge against the cost of living crisis is owning things that are scarce. Real estate, businesses, stocks, commodities. This requires a painful pivot. It requires you to live below your means, even when society screams at you to spend. It means ignoring the status games that your peers are playing. If you make $100,000, you need to live like you make $50,000. That $50,000 gap is your capital. That is the money you use to buy your freedom. You also have to look at the other side of the equation, skill stacking. If the value of money is dropping, you must increase the value of your output. In the age of AI and automation, being an average employee is the riskiest position to be in. The income ceiling is only broken by those who can solve expensive problems. The wealth gap of 2026 isn't just about money, it's about financial literacy. The new rich aren't the ones with the highest salaries and the least luxury cars. They are the ones who detached their time from their money. They are the ones who understood that the game was rigged, so they stopped playing by the old rules. The $100,000 illusion is the wake-up call you needed. The game hasn't ended, but the difficulty setting has been turned up to hard mode. The question is, are you going to keep running on the treadmill, hoping the speed slows down, or are you going to step off and start building your own machine? But there is another threat coming in 2026 that makes inflation look like a joke. And it has to do with how you earn that money in the first place. The skills that got you to 6 figures might be the very skills that are about to hit zero value. You need to understand the shift before it happens.